We still don't know the real reason Conor McGregor was a no-show for UFC 303. But what we do know is it's not because he injured his toe. And we know this because of how things have transpired since that cover reason was given. And a lot of people were onto this right away, including Daniel Cormier. So in a moment, we're going to play this clip from DC. But for now, let's look at this original announcement from the UFC Instagram account. Here we have the abrupt postponement of the UFC 303 Dublin press conference. So, again, not only did Conor McGregor's fight against Michael Chandler get canceled, we also had this press conference that was in Dublin that people were paying to attend. They were buying tickets for this, and this got canceled as well. And what you'll notice with this Instagram post, both in the image and the text, is there's not a reason given for the postponement. We just have this abrupt postponement. And this is from June 2nd. And then on June 3rd, this tweet from June 3rd, we have Conor McGregor seemingly giving a reason, but not really. The tweet reads, in consultation with the UFC, today's press conference was canceled due to a series of obstacles outside of our control. So when he writes due to, you wait for it, but then all we get is really a placeholder excuse, but not the actual reason for the cancellation. So it's like you have to wonder, why are you not giving us the actual reason? We don't have a tangible reason. A series of obstacles doesn't give us any information other than you're telling us that there are more than one things that are preventing the press conference from going through. And then to end the tweet, he writes, I can't wait to put on the greatest all-time show in the octagon. So giving us this preview that there will be a fight happening, but he doesn't say when. He says he appreciates the passion and support, but this is really a nothing tweet that doesn't provide any substantive insight as to why the cancellation happened. It's also interesting that he writes in consultation with the UFC. All right, so now let's play this clip from DC because DC is on this right away.
So to me, it feels like this is a big deal. Look, I have reached out to many in the organization to try to find out what happened. And when everybody's tight-lipped as they are right now, to me, that tells me it's a little worrisome. Chill.
Worrisome, a big deal, and secrecy, right? Daniel Cormier is as connected as it gets. And if people are shutting him out, there's a reason he's not getting any information, or at least information that he can speak about publicly. So why all of the secrecy? If this is simply a matter of what Conor reveals later of a toe injury, then why can't they just say this? Why isn't this straightforward? There's this shroud of secrecy. There's this ambiguity that exists, and we're not given a reason why. And the very fact that we're not even given a reason why reveals something. It reveals that something is awry. Something is off. Let's continue with Daniel.
I watched Charlie, our guy at ESPN, leave Newark on Saturday morning to fly to Dublin, him and Ray. They're already there. They're in Dublin. I watched Lene Breckenridge, who is the head of PR at the UFC, as I'm going to the back of the arena to talk to Islam Makhachev, fully dressed to get on the plane to fly to Dublin, Ireland for this presser. When did they get the news that this was not happening? It had to be after 1 a.m. on Saturday because we were still getting done with the pay-per-view. She clearly did not know that this was canceled at 1 a.m. on Saturday night.
Okay, so the UFC doesn't, they had no idea. They were completely caught off guard by this. Daniel Cormier just said they already had people in Dublin, or maybe that was on ESPN's part, but people were already in Dublin. And then you also have this UFC representative. I forget the official role she was in, but she didn't know either. And this was after an event that had taken place on Saturday. So the UFC doesn't know. This all comes out very fast, which this all comes abruptly in quick succession, which tells you that something drastic happened. And so we're given a seeming reason for this. And in an article published on June 21st by Brett Okamoto, we have this quote from Conor. We had a lapse in concentration and engaged in a training session without wearing the full protective gear, and I hit the toe off the elbow and broke the toe clean. It needs a few weeks. That's it. And then he continues on. So the key here is it needs a few weeks. That's it. If that were true, then this would all be very straightforward and logical. Okay, yes, the 303 fight is not happening. Let's now look to 304 or 305. Easy, right? Very straightforward. There isn't much to think about here. We just reschedule and book for another date. And then we also have some photos. So Conor McGregor shares images of his toe injury, and this comes by way of ESPN MMA on Instagram. Here we can see that Conor McGregor's toe is bruised. Obviously, there's something wrong with it. We have an x-ray that's showing a break. So here we have a plausible reason why the cancellation took place. But again, by way of time passing, we know this isn't the case because Conor McGregor still isn't fighting. It's the date I'm recording this is January 29th. Still, as of today, we have no update on our Conor McGregor fight. It's not on the horizon. It's not being talked about by the UFC, by Dana White. There's nothing. So how could it have been as simple as this toe injury? And by the way, the press conference was abruptly postponed 34 weeks ago. So this post was 34 weeks ago. Over 8 months ago, this has happened. Not only has there not been any update since this occurred, there isn't one to be expected. We're still on ice with this. And then so, looking at a fan-cited article, this is written by Amy Kaplan. And this article, let's look at the date that this was published. June 15th. So a few weeks, nearly 2 weeks after the postponement of the press conference, we have Amy Kaplan onto this. So the article reads, Dana White might have dropped a hint about Conor McGregor's injury. And we have this quote from Dana White. It's the business, that this is the way it goes. And from here on, I'm not going to talk about it until when he's healed and he's right. Then we'll look at the landscape and see what we can figure out. So even from this quote, something is off because Dana White typically doesn't rule out talking about anything, but we know that reporters can be incessant about questions. But here, Dana White is shutting this off altogether, which is already a sign that something is off. But we do have Dana White come back to until he's healed and he's right. So seemingly, we're going with this reasoning that Conor McGregor's injury is what caused the fight to be off, and we just need to reschedule. And then Amy Kaplan writes, this line is what got me. We'll look at the landscape. What that means to me is a few things. It doesn't sound like the fight with Chandler is happening at all. If it were, why would the MMA landscape change any of that? The fight wasn't for a title or even a number one contender fight. What's going on in the MMA world or the rankings is irrelevant. Additionally, it sounds as if Conor McGregor could be out for an extended period of time since White seems to think the MMA landscape could be different when he comes back. So yeah, there is a little bit, we can get a little bit of insight from this quote, and it doesn't sound like Conor McGregor is coming back from that. She's right. And it's not as simple as a toe injury. Again, it's not. It's just here we have this abrupt cancellation. Later, a few weeks later, we have Conor McGregor saying it was a toe injury. It doesn't add up. Also, why wouldn't Conor McGregor have just said that in his tweet and said instead, he says it's a series due to a series of obstacles outside of our control. And he also wrote, he started the sentence with in consultation with the UFC. So in a way, it seems like the UFC is a part of this because then he says outside of our control. So if it's a series of obstacles, then how does that come down to a toe injury? Clearly, there's something more at play. And when we get to, let's play one more clip. And this is Dana White being asked a question from a reporter. And by the way, this This clip was published by ESPN MMA on August 13th, 2024. So just over a month and just about a month and a week from the abrupt postponement of the press conference.
I saw that you and Conor were both in Sturgis. I'm wondering if you guys met at all and talked about the potential of his fight as well.
We talked, yeah. We talked. We didn't meet up, but we talked. And yeah, he wants to fight, so we'll figure it out.
Soon? By the end
Not
of
this year. He won't fight this year.
We'll figure it out. He's not fighting this year. And then he repeats, he's not fighting this year. So on August 13th, 2024, Dana White already knows that Conor McGregor, over a month from the postponement of the press conference, is not fighting again for the year. So clearly, it is not just the toe injury. There's obviously something more at play, right? In play. But we don't know. We were never given the reason. And what's convenient about this all is clearly the UFC and Conor McGregor did not want to go into the reason. And this story has really just drifted and salted away to where everyone just has given up on it and assumed that it's because Conor McGregor's on cocaine. And now really, beyond that, Conor McGregor is not returning. It's very clear. He talks about fighting. There was even rumors of him versus Logan Paul in a boxing match. I don't think the UFC wanted that for this reason. Conor McGregor is going to lose against any adversary who is at all formidable. And while Logan Paul clearly is not, he has a background in MMA, right, and in boxing, but he wouldn't beat elite tier talent that the UFC has. But the UFC also doesn't want to. They don't want Conor McGregor to lose to Logan Paul because that's going to look really bad because people are going to connect Conor with what he was, which is an elite level fighter, to what he is now. And he's going to go out there and lose to Logan Paul, and it's going to make the UFC, it's going to hurt the UFC brand if Conor McGregor, right, this figure in MMA who is well known, right, the notorious, well known, former UFC champion, he goes out there and loses to an influencer. That's going to damage and tarnish the UFC brand. Conor McGregor, the most famous fighter too. So the UFC doesn't want that, and I can understand why they Dana White wouldn't sign off on that fight. But we do now know the answer wasn't, or the reason wasn't that there was a toe injury. Clearly, there was more at play, and now Conor McGregor is so far removed. We're just never going. We're not going. Not only are we not seeing the Michael Chandler fight, we're not going to see any fight. Conor McGregor, well past his prime, can't even give a promo for bare knuckle fighting without being out of breath. It's over at this point. So eventually, I think the real reason will come out. But for now, time has given us the answer. Time did help the UFC though in this moment, and Conor McGregor, they were able to defer the reasoning and just flatten the story to where it eventually was washed away with new news and new updates and other fighters. So not, the attention went away, but I wanted to bring this up because it's something that never got resolved. And in a way, we do have a resolution because we know through time that obviously it wasn't because Conor McGregor injured his toe.